might be surprised to learn what winters in Atlanta are really like. And today's video is all about that. If you're thinking about making a move into the metro Atlanta area, you need to watch this video, especially this winter, because we have had some crazy weather. My name is Kelly Allen. I've been helping people move into the state of Georgia for 26 years. There are 8 surprising truths about winter weather in the Atlanta area. Okay, so the first surprising truth about winter weather in Atlanta is that we get a lot of rain. We actually get a lot of rain all year round. That's really surprising to people. We actually get more rain than Seattle does, and they're kind of known to be kind of the city of rain, but we get a lot of rain. Now, during the winter months, we don't get as much as the Pacific Northwest, but we get a lot more than other areas of the country. In fact, we get between 3 and 5 inches of rain per winter month. So that's December, January, and February. So if you're moving to Atlanta and you're going to be here in the winter, then you need to understand that you got to pack your raincoat, you got to pack your rain gear, because we are going to get rain. All right, the second surprising fact that you have to know about is related to how to heat your home in the winter. And a lot of our furnaces here are run off gas. And because they're run off gas, in the winter months, you can get some very surprisingly high gas bills if you don't do this one thing. And that one thing is to lock in your gas therm rate. People have learned the hard way that if you have a fluctuating therm rate, that your gas bill in the winter can be astronomical. But here's a great thing about Georgia. You can actually pick your gas provider. So shop around. Shop around to see who has the lowest price per therm rate, and then lock that rate in for a minimum of a year, and you will save hundreds and hundreds of dollars every year. Third surprising fact, and this is actually something I love about living in Georgia, is that school is going to be called out for even the chance of icy or snowy conditions. And that is because the buses have to get around, and there are a lot of shady areas. And I don't mean shady as in bad or negative. I mean like literal shady streets and back roads in the metro Atlanta area and all throughout Georgia. And so when the threat of ice comes to our roads and the possibility of those buses not being able to safely transport our children to and from school becomes a factor, then you will find that at least once a year, school's going to be called out. Okay, the fourth surprising truth about Atlanta in the winter is that the temperature can fluctuate hugely. I mean, it can be in the high 60s one day and it can be in the mid 20s the next morning. We have very wide fluctuations in our temperatures, but for the most part, what you're going to find is that February is going to be our coldest month with lows in the mid to high 30s and highs you're going to find usually in like the high 40s to low 50s. So when we have these like really low fluctuations, that typically doesn't stay long. But again, 2025 has been completely different. The entire country has been affected by these weather pressures that are moving in from the north, and they just continue to settle into the southeast. I mean, gosh, it snowed in Florida, which is crazy to think about. Okay, the fifth surprising truth, and this is really for my people who are coming from New England and the Northwest area, is how much sun we get. Now, I talk to y'all every single week, and I know that the sun can set and it starts to get dark around 4 p.m. where you guys are. Well, here, the sun's really not setting until about 6 p.m. in the depths of winter. So you get an entire, about an hour and a half, 2 hours longer of sunlight. And let me tell you something, that does wonders for your brain, for your skin, and just your overall mental health. So if you're living in an area currently where you're sick and tired of how dark it is, and you're sick of not seeing the sun during the day, Atlanta gets a ton of sun. Come on down. I promise you will not regret it. Okay, the sixth surprising truth is the wind that we have. Now, this again is all year round. We can have some pretty big windstorms, but certainly in the months where we don't have leaves on the trees and there could even be some ice on the trees as well, these windstorms can get dangerous. You can have trees that are falling, you can have limbs that fall, your power can go out. It can present a range of problems. Thankfully, we don't have that a lot, but when there is frozen precipitation on the trees, you want to be really careful about where you're parking your car outside and just making sure that you've got some backup plans in place in case your power goes out. This is especially true for in-town Atlanta, where so many of our utilities are still above ground. They have not been buried. It's not as big of a deal when you're in the suburbs because most of our utilities have been buried underground. The eighth and final surprising truth of Atlanta weather in the winter is how cold it can actually get. Now, I know that I just talked about fluctuations, but let's really get into how cold it can get. So again, this is 2025. This year we have experienced some brutally cold weather. And so when I talk about brutally cold, I'm talking about extended lows in the teens and highs in the low 30s or even high 20s. Now, that is not typical for Atlanta weather. We will have that, but it might be 1 or 2 days in the entire winter season. This year, though, we've had about 2 weeks of it. And when that happens, our pipes were not built for that type of cold weather. So you want to make sure that you put some protection in place for the pipes in your home when the weather gets below freezing for extended periods of time. One of the best things that you can do is open up your faucets and just let the water trickle out of it. Open up your cabinets so that the heat that's in your home can get to the pipes underneath, and just make sure that you keep water running in those pipes. It doesn't have to be hot water, it can be cold water. I personally, as a realtor, have a ton of stress around this with my vacant listings during the winter, and you should just see us. We are constantly checking on our homes that are vacant to make sure that we're not walking into a situation where pipes are burst and the house is flooding. The final surprising truth about Atlanta winters is that I'll have people come in from other states in the country and they'll see our temperatures. Let's say it's January and let's say it's 50 degrees with a low of 35 degrees. And they'll think, wow, that's so mild. That feels like our spring in New England. However, it can still feel very cold because Atlanta is in a subtropical climate, which means that we've got humidity all year round. So you've heard that whole like, oh, it's a dry heat or it's a wet heat. Well, there's a dry winter, there's a dry cold and a wet cold, and we're a wet cold for the most part. And so, you know, if you see 40s or 50s, that may not feel like your 40s or 50s. That's in, let's say, Arizona, for example. This is going to be a humid 40s or 50s. So just be prepared for that. So just because you see a temperature doesn't mean that it feels the same where you're coming from. But with all that being said, Atlanta is still an amazing place to spend your winter. Spring starts rolling around in March and the azaleas are blooming by April. It doesn't start to get really brutally hot until July, and then that even begins to taper off around October. So then you go into the fall seasons of October, November, December, and then we go into the winter months. So you truly get all 4 seasons here in the metro Atlanta area. If you want to get a little bit more seasonality, maybe move to the more northern metro Atlanta area or North Georgia area. If you hate cold altogether, then maybe you're going to be moving more towards South Georgia. But either way, calling Atlanta home because of the weather is a reason why so many people move into our area. So if that's you, if you've been thinking about that and you found this video helpful, please click the subscribe button, the like button. It helps so much. And leave a comment. What was the most surprising thing that you found about the weather in Atlanta in the winter? If you've moved here from out of state, I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you next time.